AITA for refusing to drop charges in exchange for saving my family. I'm a 33-year-old male now, but it all began back in college when I met my wife, 33 female. Started as a casual fling, evolved into something much deeper with time. After graduation, I was a bit lost, no plans, no direction, so I decided to follow her to her hometown, a major southern city. I didn't know anyone there, so we spent all our time together. During that time, I got to know her family. My wife comes from a huge extended family, all orbiting around her mother, Sharon, was the undisputed matriarch. Sharon's husband, my wife's father, had tragically died in a workplace accident years before, leaving her with a substantial settlement. She was smart, though, invested wisely, and built a solid financial foundation. Her family revered her, turning to her for advice on every major life decision. Sharon had paid for weddings, education, and even helped kickstart a few businesses. She was the glue holding them all together. I always got along well with my wife's two brothers. We'd hang out a few times a year, just the guys, and it felt like I was becoming part of the family. After 3 years of dating, we got married, and soon after, our son was born. That's when Sharon made a grand gesture. She bought us a house near hers. We'd been living in a downtown loft, so this was a huge upgrade, and honestly, I was relieved. But with the house came strings I hadn't anticipated. Sharon was suddenly a constant presence in our lives, dropping by unannounced, offering unsolicited advice, and making snide remarks that chipped away at my patience. I felt like I was under constant surveillance. No matter what I did, it wasn't good enough for Sharon. It all came to a head about 18 months later. We had a massive blowout, and I decided I'd had enough. I moved my family across town to an apartment, hoping for some peace. My wife was furious. The distance between us, both physical and emotional, grew rapidly. Sharon was livid and wasted no time turning most of the family against me. For over a year, I didn't attend a single family event. My wife still saw them, but without me, and since they lived over 30 minutes away, those visits became far less frequent. Sharon went from seeing her grandson almost daily to barely once a month, and her hatred for me intensified. Now onto the incident. My wife had to work one weekend, and I was asked to take our son to his cousin's birthday party was at Sharon's house, and even though I wanted to avoid the place, this was my son's first cousin, so I couldn't say no. The tension was palpable the moment I walked through the door. My brother-in-law, the father of the birthday boy, greeted me, but no one else acknowledged my presence. I didn't mind and found a spot in the corner, scrolling through my phone to pass the time. Apparently, that didn't sit well with Sharon. She thought I was being rude, and it wasn't long before she decided to confront me. Sharon marched over, fuming, and what started as a few sharp words quickly escalated into a full-blown argument. I'd had enough of being treated like an outsider, so I decided to leave and take my son with me. That's when Sharon, in her authoritative tone, declared, "You can go, but my grandbaby is staying." Her words were the final straw. I lost my temper and started cursing her out. The next thing I knew, I was waking up on the front lawn, my face throbbing with pain. Apparently, my two brother-in-laws had beaten the crap out of me, in front of my son, no less. A couple of her cousins were helping me up, whispering that I should just leave. But I was done being pushed around. I immediately called the police and reported the assault, and I told them my child was being held against my will. Police arrived, and chaos erupted. Both brothers were arrested, and Sharon completely lost it, screaming at the officers as they tried to take my son out of the house. My wife showed up just as her mother was being arrested for refusing to release our child. Though Sharon was released shortly after, her sons weren't so lucky. They were charged with assault. My brother-in-law, birthday boy's dad, was in serious trouble. He had a prior assault charge from his college days, and this could mean real consequences for him. My wife was furious with everyone involved, mostly with me. She pleaded with me to drop the charges, but I refused. Instead, I got restraining orders against all three of them. Sharon wasn't allowed near our son, and her brothers had court dates looming early next year. Last month, my wife moved out of the house, and now we're on the path to divorce. Yesterday she came to me with one last offer. Move to another city, start fresh, but only if I agreed to drop the charges against her brothers and remove the restraining order on her mom. I told her I'd think about it, but deep down, I know I'm done. I want to keep my family together, but I also know that if I drop these charges, I'll never be able to protect my son from them again. If she's not willing to put our family first now, what hope is there for the future? So, I'm leaning toward divorce, but I can't help but wonder, am I the asshole? Edit. This whole situation blew up overnight. I woke up to dozens of messages and comments after the story made the rounds online. Additional context. My wife is the youngest and the only girl in the family, so I think that's where a lot of the tension comes from. Sharon has always been fiercely protective of, and that's bled into our marriage in ways I wasn't prepared for. When Sharon lost it on the police, that was uncharacteristic even for her. She's usually so composed and in control. My wife, on the other hand, is an amazing mom and partner. But her inability to be independent of her mom's influence has always been our biggest issue. She's just trying to find a middle ground, torn between her love for me and her loyalty to her family. She's mad at her brothers and hasn't spoken to them since the incident. She's also upset with her mom for starting the argument and refusing to let me leave with our son. My wife genuinely believes that a fresh start in a new city save our marriage, and I don't doubt that she wants the best. Before we moved into the house Sharon bought, our relationship was solid. As for the assault, here's how it really went down. I remember the first punch, but I was dazed almost immediately. The last clear memory I have is flailing like a kid while they kept hitting me. What I didn't remember until my wife's cousin reminded me was our son screaming, "Stop hitting my daddy," and seeing them drop me on the lawn like a piece of trash. That's what really hurts. The memory of my son witnessing that, more than any of the bruises. I've got to admit, my pride was wounded just as much as my body. I genuinely liked both of her brothers before all this. And to be fair, when I lost my cool and started cursing Sharon out, I wasn't exactly polite. Fuck you. And bitch definitely came out of my mouth, and I'm not proud of that. This is the South after all, and even the police when they showed up kinda shrugged and said, "What did you expect to happen?" Now I'm torn. I don't know if dropping the charges would prevent anything like this from happening again, or if it would just open the door for more problems down the line. My wife wants to try again, to leave all this behind and start over. But I'm stuck wondering if it's even possible, or if this is the beginning of the end. I want to keep my family together, but I'm not sure I can ever fully trust that things won't spiral out of control again. Am I making the right choice by standing firm, or should I be trying harder to save what we've built? Additional context provided by OP in the comment. Also, Sharon never went to jail. When my wife arrived, Sharon was being escorted to a car. My wife and her two uncles got Sharon to calm down, and they let her go. She wasn't being violent, was cursing and blocking them from entering the house. The only thing positive about the arrest, and Sharon's almost arrest, was it made getting a restraining order way easier.